Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to our TELTA webinar series. My name is Irene Maganga. I'll be moderating this session. And today we have our presenter, Annie Altamirano. I'm going to introduce her. So Annie Altamirano holds MA in ELT and Applied Linguistics. She has over 30 years experience as a teacher, teacher trainer, and an author. She has given workshops and trainings in Latin America, Europe, and Asia. She is a CUP, Teacher Support Service Mentor, and Volunteer Mentor in the EVE Africa ELTA and EVE LAC programs. Anne, you are welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Yeah. Thank you for the invitation, and I'd like to thank the association and everybody attending today. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are watching this from. And well, today I would like to talk a little bit about differentiated instruction. If you will allow me to share my screen. Here we are. Okay, so why shared instruction, differentiated instruction? I mean, we have, no matter whether we are starting the academic year or we have already started or we are starting a new semester, our students, we know that our students arrive with a variety of mixed abilities, wants, needs, and more importantly, they exhibit different strengths, styles of learning, language skills, and we need to be aware. So one of the ways in which we can overcome this challenge is by implementing differentiated instruction. But let's see, what is differentiated instruction? Differentiation is a very, very useful tool. And it aims at catering for the needs of the different needs of our students. But there are a lot of myths about differentiation and what it entails. So I will start first with having a look at the myths. So differentiated instruction is not individualized instruction. It is true that it offers multiple ways of learning, and although it aims at attending to students as individuals, it doesn't assume a separate assignment for each learner. It is not chaotic. One of our main concerns is fear of losing control of our classroom. But in an effectively differentiated classroom, orderly flexibility is a defining feature. Also, it is not another way to provide homogeneous grouping. That is, flexible grouping accommodates students who are strong in some areas and weak in others. And the goal is to have students work with a variety of peers and with tasks that are designed to draw on the strengths of all the group members, but also to share up students' areas of needs. Also, it is not tailoring the same suit of clothes. That is, it is not letting students volunteer to answer questions or grading some students a little harder because we perceive that they are stronger. Such modifications show a certain awareness of differences in students' needs, but it's not enough to address significant learning issues. And finally, it is not just for learners who struggle. Of course, learners who have perceived learning challenges such as ADHD, visual or hearing impairment, intellectual disabilities, need constant support and scaffolding. But learners who learn rapidly, who think deeply and make meaningful connections across content also need challenges on a regular basis. Otherwise, they are not going to grow academically as they should. And worst of all, they are going to be bored in our classroom and they are going to start misbehaving, quite likely, or they are going to switch off. So what is differentiation? Okay, effective differentiation is relevant, rigorous, and proactive. It is designed to be robust enough to challenge all learners in the classroom. It is also more equitative than quantitative. That is, a learner who has demonstrated mastery of one skill is ready to stop practicing that skill and move on to a subsequent one. So, adjusting the quantity of an assignment will be less effective than altering the nature of the assignment to match the actual needs of the student. Differentiated instruction is also rooted in assessment. Diagnostic pre-assessment routinely takes place at the beginning of a unit to throw light in the individual's learner's needs and interests in relation to the unit goals. Throughout a unit, we can assess students' readiness levels, interests, approaches to learning, and we can design learning experiences based on that understanding of the student's needs. Also, differentiated instruction is taking multiple approaches to content, process, and product. By differentiating these three elements and other elements, we can offer different approaches to what students learn, how they learn, and how they demonstrate their learning. It is, of course, student-centered, because the main reason why we are doing all this is the student. It is a blend of whole class, group, and individual instruction, because we are going to have different types of grouping, and we can differentiate by grouping too. And finally, it's organic and dynamic, because students and teachers learn together. Ongoing collaboration with students is necessary to refine the learning opportunities that they have, so that these opportunities of learning are effective for each learner. So, how can we define differentiation? It's never something that we add onto a lesson just like this. It's something that runs throughout what we do as teachers, through the planning phase, the teaching phase, and the assessment phase. Therefore, it is what we do to help students make progress regardless their starting points. That is, immediately ensuring that all learners, no matter their ability, their interest, their context, have the support and the scaffolding they need to meet or to exceed the learning intentions. Now, how can we differentiate? At the heart of classroom practice of differentiation is the modification of three curriculum-related elements: content, process, and product. But these are by no means the only elements that we can differentiate. These can and are frequently used in combination with other techniques. For example, as I mentioned, differentiating by grouping or by questioning. Today, I'm going to focus on some of these aspects because it will take us a long time otherwise. So I will focus on some of these. Let's see. Let's begin with a very important, but I think this is the first step in differentiating successfully in the classroom. How can we differentiate content? There are two ways to think about differentiated content: adapting what we teach or what we want students to learn, or adapting how we give students access to what we teach or what we want them to learn. So I would suggest that we need to use varied texts and combining different texts with a variety of supplementary materials. This increases the chances of reaching more students. Giving different learners different resources at different levels of complexity towards, and this is very important, the same learning outcome. We can build a class library from discarded texts any kind of print material at various levels, useful websites, podcasts, CDs, DVDs, note-taking organizers, wikis, blogs, class websites, social media ads to help students access the information. Also, simplifying and pre-teaching some of the vocabulary. Sometimes grade level texts are too simple for some students in the class, but too difficult or too complex for others. And some of the times we want to give our students additional material from external sources. And we are not sure whether that vocabulary, the vocabulary or the language structures that are included in that material is suitable for the level of the student. So what we can do is change the vocabulary that our students need to learn. We can simplify the text to eliminate unnecessary vocabulary or difficult vocabulary, rewrite the material in simpler language. And how can we do this? Very easily. There are online tools that will help you adapt the levels of difficulty. And I will show you the links to some that I use in a minute. You can also present content in different modes and support systems. That is in a multimodal way. As I say, include visual, tactile elements, include apps, websites, audio and video recordings, all sorts of different elements to cater for different types of learning. Another way is to divide content into manageable chunks. That is, if some content that we are offering our students is too large, then we can divide it, chunk it into smaller units, and we can share it, for example, through graphic or visual organizers that help the students follow the flow of ideas. This is particularly useful when students are working with reading texts or listening texts. Also, use stepped activities, worksheets, and scaffolding cards. I use these a lot. For example, what I mean by scaffolding cards, when the students are doing a speaking activity, suppose, and they have to work in a small group and they have to give opinions or agree and disagree, etc. So what you can do is give students cards or pieces of paper with sentence starters that will help them do the speaking activity with sentence stems, for example, useful language that they can use to agree or disagree. If they are doing a writing exercise, for example, a composition, they are writing an essay, a composition of some kind, a description, then you can give them cards with some useful vocabulary or linkers that they can use. The material that you include in the scaffolding cards can be generated by you, or it can be generated by the students, because before they do the activity, what you can do is ask the class to work in pairs or small groups and come up with different sentence starters, or do a class brainstorming so that the students come up with the language they need to use then. If they are doing a reading or a listening task, for example, you can change the activity slightly. So, for example, if they are doing a listening activity, sometimes a listening activity comes with answer the question. Sometimes this answer the question exercise is a bit too difficult for some students. So what can you do? Change the task. Instead, give them a true-false, tick off the ideas that you here mentioned, a multiple choice. That will be simpler than answer the question, which more confident students may do. Another possibility is using assessment tools like KWL. Then I'm going to show you, after this, I'm going to show you some worksheets also, which I use a lot and I design them. Using KWL, for example, and this is a very useful assessment tool. This is it, very simple. At the beginning of the lesson, you draw this chart with 3 columns. Normally, I prefer to draw this on a large piece of paper that I can then put to the side of the board and come back to it at the end of the lesson, for example. So you draw this chart and you ask learners to write what they know or they think they know about the topic of discussion, the topic of the lesson, whatever you want them to learn today, in the first column. The first column is the K column, what I know or I think I know. So they write what they know about the topic. Yes. For example, suppose that they are doing a unit on dinosaurs. So they write sentences about the things that they know about dinosaurs. In the middle column, the W, what I want to know, they write questions that they would like to know the answers to. So things that they would like the lesson to tell them. Yes? For example, then at the end of the lesson or at the end of the unit, you decide, you bring back this poster, this table to the front of the class, and you review the questions in the middle column. What I want to know, what I want to learn. And you ask learners to add statements to the first column, the third column, what I have learned. So the what I learned or what I have learned column is the new knowledge that they have acquired. Then, thinking back on the questions, are there any questions that remain unanswered? If there are any questions that remain unanswered, where do they think they can find the answers? That is, you can do a follow-up activity with this. You can ask them to try and find out the answers that are missing. So in this way, you can, first of all, you can assess how much the students know where they are with respect of the topic that you're going to tackle in the lesson. As I said before, sometimes we need to adapt the level of the materials that we have, either make it more challenging or less challenging. So these are some tools, 3 tools that I usually use. They are free software and they are very simple to use. Generally what you do is you copy a piece of text into a window, you click, and the tool will tell you the level of the vocabulary. It will tell you with reference, for example. So you can use these. There are many, many others, of course, but these are the ones that I usually use when I write exercises for my students or when I write books that I need to prepare reading activities. So what I do is I check the language with these online tools. I also mentioned the scaffolding cards. And I also mentioned at the beginning that differentiation is not creating tasks that are easier or more difficult, but differentiation is about the amount of support that we give. So for example, these are exercises from some differentiation worksheets that I have written for one of the last books that I wrote. So the students are working with conjunctions, right? Because, and, although, and but. This is a fairly lower level of students. So in the first worksheet, this worksheet would be, worksheet A, would be the one with the most support. So here we have sentences that there are rules, but, and, used to join ideas or words that are related, as in a list. So here I'm giving them a choice of conjunctions, and they have to choose which conjunctions matches the rule. The third one, the third worksheet, is more challenging, is the most challenging, because I'm giving the rule, but they have to decide which conjunction they have to use, and there is no support. The one in between, worksheet B is the one that has an average support. Here they have the 4 conjunctions and they have to match them. So as you see, you don't need to create lots of new material. With the same material, I have catered for 3 different levels. And also, you don't really need more than 3 levels if you want to differentiate worksheets. Most support, average, and least support. And that's it. You don't need anything else. Now, another aspect of differentiation is questioning. It's one important aspect. The type of questions, okay, can I go on? Yeah, it seems. Okay, it said that we ask about 100 questions during a class. So that's about 100 opportunities to stimulate learning, thinking, and driving students forward. But studies have found that at least 60% of the questions that we ask in the classroom are recall questions. Between 12 and 30% are class management questions, and only 4% are higher order questions. So, what are higher order questions? Higher order, let's see, here we are. Higher order questions are those questions that require that the student goes beyond the simple information and engage in deeper thinking. And so both the language and the thinking is more complex. They take learners into more abstract language functions, such as, for example, giving and justifying opinions, speculation, making hypotheses, and they can be used to interpret things, suggest solutions to problems, explain why something is important, giving opinions and making comparisons. So learners need to have the opportunity to practice using language for all these functions. One way of creating good questions, that is higher order thinking questions, is using Bloom's taxonomy. This taxonomy has 6 levels, and each level involves more challenging levels of thinking than the last. So it describes how mastery develops as learners become more competent and more confident. So what I suggest is use Bloom's taxonomy to do the work for you. You can find lots of examples online of different verbs that are appropriate for different levels of the taxonomy as the basis for your questions. And so if you Google Bloom's taxonomy questions, you're going to find very, very useful tables and examples. And one way of asking questions is to use Socratic questioning. Socrates, who was one of the greatest educators of all times, taught by asking questions, and so he drew out answers from his students. So there are 6 types of Socratic questioning, and these can help our students develop their critical thinking. The overall purpose of these questions is to challenge accuracy and completeness of thinking. And there are 6 categories. Questions for clarification, for example, why are you saying that? Questions that probe assumptions, that make them think about unquestioned beliefs. Questions that probe reasons and evidence, when students give reasons for their argument, dig into that reasoning rather than assuming it is a given. Questioning viewpoints and perspectives. questions that probe implications and consequences. For example, the argument the students give may have logical implications that can be forecast. Do these implications make sense? Are they desirable? And questions about questions. So, for example, you can get reflexive about the whole thing, turning the question in on itself. So, use their attack against themselves. For example, what was the point of asking that question? Why do you think I asked that question? So these types of questions are going to engage students in deeper, complex thinking. Some tips for using higher order questioning. Plan significant questions. Many a time, because obviously we have to do lots of things for the lesson. So we ask questions, but we don't necessarily plan them. So what I suggest is when you are doing your planning, plan the questions that you want to ask at certain points. And what I do, if it's of any use, I put sticky notes in the book or on the planning so that I remember where I want to ask what question. Because obviously we need to pay attention to too many things. Use wait time, that is, give thinking time and response time. Normally we ask a question and we expect our students to answer like this immediately. No, I mean, this is not real. Normally, when we are asked a question, we need time to think before we answer. So why not give the students thinking time? Also, adopt no hands up. That is, when you ask a question, allow thinking time and then identify the student who is going to respond first. This is differentiation in practice because you are exposing all the students to the question, but targeting the response. Also, ask probing questions and follow up on the students' responses. So, subsequent questions formed on the basis of the students' responses. Periodically summarize in writing the key points that have been discussed so that students do not lose thread of the discussion. And of course, draw as many students as possible into the discussion and let them discover knowledge on their own. Don't spoon feed the students. Sometimes we give too much help. Now, here are 3 ways in which you can plan your questions. Asking yourself these questions. Are there students I particularly want to ask questions to? If so, what questions? What information do I want to elicit from the students? What questions will help me do this? And thirdly, are there any particular types of questions that I would like to ask? What questions? What types? For planning the lesson, we can start planning our questions too. Now, another thing that we can differentiate is the product. A product is something that students generate at the end of a significant span of learning. And this product requires learners to apply and extend what they have learned over a period of time. Products range in complexity, but they should all have some academic criteria, clear academic criteria, and be aligned to the learning objectives. Here we have a number of possible product formats, and I'm sure that you have done this all the time because these are products. We do this in every class. So these are very good opportunities for differentiating. Yes? And how can we? First, decide on the formats the products will take. That is, what is the product? Sometimes the product is determined by the book. You have projects, for example, and the projects are specified in the book, but you can give them a twist, or you can give additional options. Also, determine baseline expectations for quality. Make it known to the students what quality means. What do you expect them to do? Sometimes, for example, students finish very quickly because they want to be the first to finish. But the quality of their work is not as good as it could be. So let them know what your expectations of quality are. Decide how you will support them. Will it be with additional questions, with additional material? How are you going to project to the real world so that what they are doing in the English classroom is meaningful in real life? It's not just one other school subject. Also encourage them to use and synthesize multiple sources of information. And this doesn't mean that it's going to be English only. It can be that is you can, if students are doing a project about their own country, and most of the information is in the learner's own language, let them use those sources. But then the product will have to be in English. So they will have to process the information, synthesize the information, and render the information in English. Also, they can synthesize multiple sources of information, take from here and there. This is something that students normally do in mainstream curriculum subjects, but then apparently when it comes to English, they forget about this. And this is a skill that they have, but they don't remember they have, at least not in English. Also, provide templates or graphic organizers to support struggling learners. Sometimes with graphic organizers will help them organize ideas or the steps of a product or a project. Also, establish mini milestones for sections of a product, particularly when this is a project that is going to take some lessons or a few hours. Instead of giving them a whole bulk of tasks to do, establish sections, milestones, and at each milestone, celebrate success. And a very practical thing is to analyze models of effective products from previous years or from other classes, anonymous, of course, so that they can see what a good quality product is. Now, as Piaget reflected, the heartbreaking difficulty in pedagogy is that the best methods are also the most difficult ones. But although managing a differentiated classroom isn't always easy, I think that the benefits are worth the challenge. And I'm going to give you a few tips that you can use to meet the challenge of designing and managing differentiated instruction for your learners. First of all, have a strong rationale for what you do, for creating the differentiated classroom, and share it with your students and with the parents. Let them know why you are doing what you are doing. If you help them understand what you are doing, they will contribute to the class. They are likely to support you. Also, begin at a pace that is comfortable for you. I'm sure that many of you are already making frequent adjustments to the curriculum and to instruction to allow for learner differences in the classroom. And maybe with a few additional touches, you will be ready to gradually move ahead to full differentiation. Now, if you feel less confident, take small steps, one thing at a time. Select a few low preparation strategies and use them consistently throughout the year, and then choose one or two high preparation approaches per unit or per quarter and add them to your repertoire. But don't try to differentiate everything all the time. Sometimes it is not necessary, and definitely it will be a gigantic task. And of course, you will be disappointed because you're going to be tired of doing so many things. It's going to add significantly to your workload and you're going to give up. And we don't want that. Also, time the activities, time differentiated activities to support student success. When you are designing tasks, remember two things. The time allotted for a task should be a bit less than the attention span of the students who work on that task. And also remember that advanced learners often have extended attention spans. So careful with the timing. Create and deliver instructions carefully. That is, instead of giving multiple sets of instructions to the class as a whole, give task cards to individuals or to groups. And for example, if you are working in groups, you can designate an instructions reader in each group. And the job of that student is to read and answer questions about the directions. Also, use simple language, learner-friendly language, and bullet points. That will make your life much easier and the life of the students much easier because they are going to understand the instructions much more easily. Also, create a system to assign students to groups. So that groups are made up of the kind of student that you want, because you may want to have groups of similar ability or mixed ability students. You can make a wall chart and keep it on display for groups of extended duration. You can use colors, you can use numbers, you decide. But you can do this and also make things quite less complicated. Get help from the students. For example, when you're busy with another group or with a student, you ask, for example, the more confident students to give you a hand with something. Make sure they understand also when it is okay to come to you for help, and that it's not okay to disrupt another student's work. So if you are working with a student, they should know that they cannot come and say, Miss, I need you. No, wait a second, I'm busy right now. So develop some class rules, some agreed class rules, and keep them in a poster, for example, so that they remember what they have to do. Also, have a plan for fast finishers. If there are students who systematically finish their work early, as I said before, and they do so at the expected level of competency and quality, it means that the task wasn't challenging enough, or that the students are rushing to finish. So make it clear to them that you understand that they are very competent, but you want to see quality work that shows their aspiration to quality. And you want them to take pride in what they do. Also, promote on-task behavior. Make it clear to students that this will help them do better quality work. Give them responsibility for their learning. This will make classroom management more effective and help learners become more independent. And also engage students in talking about classroom procedures and expectations. Have conversations every now and then about what you are experiencing individually and as a group. We don't normally ask students how they feel about the things we do in the classroom. This will help also manage a differentiated classroom. And last but not least, plan, and share work with colleagues. If you have colleagues who have taught the same class in previous years, or colleagues who are teaching the same classes, the same levels, work together and share the materials. This will help you a lot. So to finish, here you have some references that I have found useful. Here I have included Bloom's taxonomy verb chart and question stems. articles on differentiation, also differentiation in primary science, which is interesting if you are teaching not only English, but also other subjects. And finally, here are my contacts. Here's my email address. You can find me on LinkedIn. I think that some of you have also found me on Facebook. I am building my blog. It's Annie Teacher Training WordPress, but it's still under construction. I promise I will have it ready soon. And I also have a YouTube channel. You can watch the videos in the YouTube channel. It's open for anybody. You can share the videos with colleagues. You can subscribe for free. So these are the different ways in which you can find me. So this is it. And I guess that we have Irene. I think that we have time for questions, maybe. Oh, Samuel, greetings from Ghana, Nepal. One of my dreams is to go to Nepal. I hope I do it sometime in my future life. So if there are, I don't know, Irene, if you have any questions for me?
Well, I don't have, but I'm expecting that people will have questions. So guys, if you have any question, post it in the chat box.
Senegal, lovely. I have friends, I live here in Spain and in a city called Salamanca, which is really beautiful. And I have friends from Senegal. I have several friends from Senegal. They are wonderful musicians and they are lovely people. And I sometimes, they sometimes invite me to their celebrations. So I feel very close to Senegal. Thank you for your generous words. Frank, hi. Frank from Ghana. So either no questions or people are very shy.
I don't know.
Oh, Mamadou, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to keep your email address. Thank you, everyone. You're very kind. You're very kind. I'm happy that you liked the session.
If you don't have questions, I think we should just end the webinar. People are really thanking you. So thank you again so much for presenting today. Okay, there is a question.
Yes, there is a question here. The user on the L part. Okay, yes, you, of course. As I said, once the students, let's see, once the students have filled in what I know or I think they know, and then they have written the questions in the middle column at the end of the lesson, what you do is you ask the students to look at the questions they asked, they wrote, and try to answer them using what they have learned during the lesson. So they go to the board and they write the answers to the questions, and then they have a look and see, okay, what questions are still unanswered? So if there are questions that are unanswered, then what you can do is ask them, okay, Having learned what we have learned in this lesson, where do you think we can find the answers to these questions? You can help them, of course, if they are very young. And so what you can do is extend this into a kind of research activity. For example, this is something that I do with children of 10, 11, with teenagers. I divide them into groups and I ask them to choose 1 or 2 questions that have been unanswered, that have remained unanswered, and try to find the answers. Once they have found the answers, they have to share their answers with the rest of the class. So everybody has to go on working on that. Let's see, there was another question. Do we give different tests? Well, here we could go on talking for a long time about this, because this belongs to the realm of assessment for learning or assessment of learning. Normally, you would give everyone the same test. So what happens is this. If you have managed to set up a differentiated classroom, and during, for example, during a unit, a whole unit of work, you have provided opportunities for differentiation, you have provided additional support, it may very well be that by the end of the unit, when you have to give them a test, all the students have managed to reach a certain level of knowledge. So they have managed, with your support and with the work you have done, they have managed to develop their abilities. So there may not be any need for a differentiated test. Because also, it's very difficult that the school will allow you to give a different test to part of the class. Let's face it, tests are the same for everybody. What you can do is perhaps design the test in such a way that within the same exercises, you can provide slightly different support in some of the exercises. But I think that by the time the students have finished, say, the unit of work, if you have managed to differentiate and support, they should be able to do the test that you have planned. There is another question here. How about readings? Oh, yes, of course you can differentiate readings. Readings, this is part of differentiated content. Differentiating readings and listen. Well, the listenings are very difficult to differentiate. I mean, the text of the reading, because they are already recorded. But the readings, yes, you can differentiate them because, for example, you can give a group of students the reading as it is in the book, or the reading that you have chosen. Then you can give another group the same text, but with slightly more challenging or less challenging, depending, vocabulary. And there is when you use the online tools that I have told you. Because you can modify the language, the vocabulary, or the grammar in such a way that the same text is accessible to everyone. And also, you can differentiate the types of questions that you ask about the reading. For some students, it may be summarize the main idea. And for others, it may be tick the ideas that best summarize the text. So the second exercise would give more support to less confident students, and the first one would be more challenging for the stronger students. So readings can, yes, very well, they lend themselves very well to differentiation. Can we rotate tasks? Well, yes, it depends, because sometimes a student, for example, let's take grammar. If you are working with grammar, sometimes a student may have understood, I don't know, the difference between the simple past and the present perfect very well. But the same student may struggle with relative clauses. And perhaps a student who struggled with who struggled with the difference in tenses gets relative clauses like this. So you can use the same worksheets with different students at different times. Yes. Let's see. Thank you, Bernard. A class of 100 students. Oh my God. That is a challenge. You are my hero. How can you teach 100 students all at the same time? This is my question to you, De Gracias. Oh my God. That's really difficult to do. It's really, that is, you should work with groups. That's a normal class here. Oh God. Yeah. Well, I don't know why I am so surprised. When I started secondary school in my home country in Argentina, we were 52. And that was considered a normal classroom. Here in Europe, a class of 52 is unthinkable. But 100 is quite a challenge. I think that what you could do is work with groups. That is, at least is what I think I would do. I would do some kind of assessment at the beginning of the year, an informal assessment so that the students don't get scared on the first day, to see where they are, or find out with previous teachers what problems some students may have, that is, find information about the students so that you more or less know where they are at the beginning of the year, how well they have mastered the contents of the previous class, what levels of ability they may have, and then you can divide them into groups depending on their levels of confidence and how much help the groups need. And so you can work with groups, having groups of different, for example, working with 3 levels of confidence, but you may have, I don't know, 10 groups. And out of the 10 groups, you may have 3 groups that are very confident, 5 groups that are okay, and 2 groups that really need support. And so in that way, you can organize yourself and make your life a little easier, but you are my hero, really. Okay, Catherine, I'm happy to hear that. More questions?
There are no more questions. So, Ayub, we have TELTA president around.
Oh. Great,
if he comes, then he will say something. But thank you so much for coming out today, presenting this topic. It's really a challenge for us who are having large classes. But I think as teachers, we have to learn a lot and try to come up with some ideas that can fit our classes context. We can't everyone maybe having a class of 30 or something. Most of our classes are between 50 to 100. So you just try to fit everything into your context. As you said, using groups, that is good. But if they're having maybe small classes, they can even use pairs or individuals.
Oh, yes, so with small classes, it's much, much easier. Everything is easier with a small class.
Yeah.
The challenge is doing this with big classes. Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Hello, Annie.
Hello.
Hello, this is Ayu, and I am a TELTA president, and I would like to appreciate you had a great presentation today. You have touched the things that touch very direct to our class, because differentiated instruction is a topic that is very hot currently, especially in teacher professional development. We teachers need to know our students before we enter the class. We need to know our students while we are in the class. And therefore, it's a topic that is very, very important for any language, any teacher, let's say.
Absolutely.
Yes, any teacher to use the techniques, and this technique cut across to everyone. You know, I was asking questions on KWL because we are normally training that a lot on techniques that we can use in a class to make sure that students are getting engaged, they engage in the lesson. But also we are experiencing this, that most teachers saying that students I have, they are not that much competent. Let's say it's like, I don't think if they deserve to be in a secondary school because they are lower performers. And therefore, understanding differentiated instruction will help every teacher to know on how to help these students. Because at the end of the day, if they are not people you have employed that you can get them fired. No, they are your students. You have to remain with them all the time and teach them. And even parents and the government is expecting students to achieve something at the end of the year. Yeah, so it's our role to make sure that we do that. So thank you very much, and this has been very important. You said that you are having a YouTube channel, so we can share with you this video. You can share it in your YouTube or your
Facebook. You can find well, just this week I uploaded an introduction, which is a kind of summary of this session. But I will send you, if you think it's useful, I will send you the slides of this session in PDF format so that you can share them with the participants, with the teachers who have attended. And
absolutely.
Yes, this YouTube channel is obviously absolutely free, and I regularly post there things on videos on different aspects of teaching. And this month I'm preparing things on differentiation, precisely.
Thank you very much. Maybe another favor that I'll ask you is, if you're having a friend who would like to, we are having a topic that want to make presentation, please get us connected. That's one way of getting connected. And we're inviting you in Tanzania anytime you want to come to Tanzania. You already have friends there. TELTA, we have more than
love to.
Please.
I would love to, really. It's I have a couple of dreams in my life, and I hope I live enough to fulfill them. One is to go to Nepal, and the other is to be able to go to Africa, to visit some countries in Africa. I mean, it's something that I would love to do.
It's time you consider Tanzania.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have students who have been to Tanzania and they love it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this invitation, and thank you all for your kind words and for being here today to listen to me. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Irene. I'm sure you can wind up.
Thank you. Thank you too.
Sante.
Before we go, we'll have our next webinar on the 24th. It will be a feedback webinar from teachers who participated in the Teacher Continuing Professional Development. So we'll have 4 teachers presenting for 15 minutes each on that day. You are all welcome. And again, Anne, thank you so much.
Thank you, Irene.
Thank
you very much.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
Irene, we also appreciate. I think in this session we had a lot of friends from outside
Ghana,
Tanzania.
from Senegal,
Nepal,
from
from
Ghana,
Ghana,
from
Senegal.
Nepal.
We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.